So here I am, sitting outside of the Palm Bay Home Depot, trying to contemplate my next move. Um, Due to some circumstances, I am actually going to be living in my van again. Now, fortunately, Little Blue 2 is still set up as a stealth camper, although parts of her have been dismantled and the electrical system is all messed up. The battery is like kind of dead now. The house battery, because it hadn't been maintained. Basically, what has happened is this. If you'll recall, I got married a couple months back, and I actually moved back onto the grid with my wife and her daughter. The problem is, with me still not being able to get a job, gainful employment, and I took all my money that I had and used it to pay child support, I ran out of money. Now, my wife was barely making enough to make the payments for the apartment to begin with. And the lease renewal came up, and they jacked the price up. $200 more a month. It is ridiculous. If you've ever been in Florida or lived in Florida, then you know that the wage here is horrendous. In Brevard County, you're lucky if you're making more than minimum wage, which is what, $7, $8 an hour? And that is not enough to live off, especially when the average cost of a 2-bedroom apartment around here is roughly $1,200. And that's without utilities and other things. Well, they jacked up the price of our apartment, which is a 2-bedroom apartment, from $700 all the way up to $900. We're not making enough to live there, is what it comes down to. So, with that going on, we had to make a really tough decision, which is either to leave the apartment, but then there's no other place to find. You know, if it was just my wife and myself, we could probably live in a van, but she's got a daughter, so that's not a possibility. So what's happening is there's some of the circumstances that's kind of forcing the issue to go the way it is. But what's happening is my wife is going to end up staying in the current apartment, which is a 2-bedroom apartment, and we're going to rent out one of the rooms and then possibly the living room as well, to try to get enough income coming in to pay just to cover the cost of the apartment. With 2 additional roommates moving in there, that should allow the payments to be made to cover the cost of the apartment, with regards to how much my wife and I are actually earning, which is like nothing. You know, I mean, she's making a little bit, but it's not enough. So, with it being a 2-bedroom apartment and having additionally 2 more people, you can't really have like 6 people in there. There's just not enough room. And also, it's like only got like 1 full bathroom and a half bath downstairs. So my wife and my daughter are going to stay in the apartment in 1 room, and we're going to rent out another room, and then we're also going to try to rent out the bottom living room area. That means there's no room for me in there, unless I were to stay in with my daughter and stuff, which isn't, and my wife, which isn't, there's just not enough room for 3 people in that 1 room. It's a tiny little apartment with a tiny little room. So I'm going to be using that house or that apartment kind of as a home base, sort of, where I can store some food and some of my items and receive mail. But for the most part, I'm back to living in a van. So the plan is for me to reconfigure my van again for full-time living again. And I'm actually planning on building up Camp Freedom 2 in the Yurt 2.0. I'm not really planning on living at Camp Freedom 2, But previously, when I was stuck here in this area, Camp Freedom 2 was like a nice sanctuary for me. It was a base where I could go camp out and just to get away from everybody and do repairs to my vehicle and whatnot without being bothered. So knowing that that is still available is a good thing. But having seen the yurt, the possibilities of building a yurt and whatnot back there, I've decided, although I'm still kind of on the wall about it, that it might be worth building a nice yurt out there, a real one. Not like anything fancy or anything, but maybe something, that I could spend maybe upwards of $200 on. Of course, it's not all going to happen all at once because I don't have $200, but I figure with a budget of $200, I could make a real yurt, one that somebody could live in. And it wouldn't be designed specifically for me to live in, but I could use it as a home base when I'm, running around and whatnot. And because I'm going to be in the van, basically. I'll only be using the apartment to pick up some food, that I have, like frozen foods and whatnot. That way my budget can be stretched because I can buy meat and cut it up and freeze it. So I have access to a refrigerator that I can go by and pick up food every so often. I can buy in bulk and split it up and freeze it. And I can also store my items over there, but for the most part I'll actually be on the road again. I don't know yet if I'm going to travel because of finances. But I'm contemplating hanging around this area, although I may take some trips to visit different cities and possibly work if I can find work in another city. At least that's the plan. Now, Yurt 2.0 is going to be built as a base where I could come and like during the day. I don't know if I'd spend the night out there, but I may. It depends on how well it turns out. The plan is to actually use real wood. Not a lot of it, because obviously I cannot afford all that wood. But what we found was, or what I found so far, building the original yurt out of really flimsy frond, branches, is that the structure is actually pretty strong when you consider that it's built out of flimsy frond branches that are very brittle. So if I were to use real wood for the center support beam, and then possibly the side beams and the roofing, I don't know what you call the beams that run across the rafters, I think the structure would be like way stronger. Now, as far as covering for the yurt, I'm contemplating getting actual canvas, or maybe even going with dirt or mud. And for the roofing, I don't know if you saw my previous videos, the grass has grown like crazy out at the compound. And I was watching that guy on Primitive Technology, and he was making this like little cot thing that was under a hut, not a hut, but like a little shelter. And he used long grass as the roofing. So I thought about it. I was like, I could use that as the side of the building or even actual roofing material. And that's what the plan is going to be. I think we're going to go ahead and try to make a hut or yurt that's a little bit better than the previous one and more sturdy, because it's going to use real wood as the framework. But for the covering, I'm going to try to make the walls out of mud if I can, or maybe even grass. I haven't decided yet. But for the roofing, I'm going to try to make it out of grass. Unless I can get cheap wood somewhere. But I think grass, just to give it more of a primitive look. The whole thing might be made out of grass. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. It just depends on time and money. I know my budget cap is about $100 to $200 for the entire structure. So that's coming up. Now, you might be wondering what I'm doing here. Or some of you already have an idea of what I'm doing here. But this video is getting a little long, so I'm going to go ahead and stop it now and continue on another segment.